Good morning, good evening, guys, from wherever you're watching. Welcome back to another video. This is a motorcycle clutch. Okay, this I got it off my Zontes 200J. This clutch failed. How did I know that the clutch has failed? You will experience the following when the clutch fails. Number one, loss of power. Okay, you accelerate, but the bike does not, the movement or this increase in speed and the increase in power does not correspond to the acceleration. Actually, I compared it to a rubber band effect, like more or less like a CVT transmission, whereby you feel the bike, just dragging. It was going and when you just try to pull on the accelerator, the revs go high and the bike does not move. Okay. Number two thing that I experienced was I had continuously been adjusting the clutch adjustment, from the lever, I had just been continuously adjusting it inside, and there was only a very small bite point. Very small bite point, and it was very farther away from the lever. So there was just a very small area where the clutch would engage, and all the other areas, the movement of the lever was basically just doing nothing, and I was getting a very small engagement, at the very end of the movement. So one day I just woke up, I was riding to work and just realized that I did not have any power. I was very afraid of trying to overtake, okay? And the bike will just see a hill or an incline and it will just start crying, okay? So eventually I had it replaced. I had this whole unit replaced because, I tried to replace it myself and broke a few components. Okay, I broke this part here and I also broke this mounting here, so I had to replace the whole unit. So we are going to look at the functioning of this motorcycle clutch. Otherwise it would have been very easy, with the right tools. I would just have replaced the discs. Okay, these were 1 2 3 4 5 6 discs. Okay, so these discs are new, and you can see they have these points where they engage. Okay, have these points where they engage. Okay, this is a friction material. Okay, as you can see, the grooves actually tell you when, if they are still in good condition or if they are worn out. We'll also try to see, the total thickness, if it can give us an idea. Okay, so usually they are marked with these blue, areas, just so that you are able to position them rightly. Okay, so these are 6 discs, clutch discs, 1 2 3 4 5 6. But you'll also look at this unit inside here and you'll also realize there is more. So what basically does the clutch do? The clutch disengages the engine from the transmission. Okay, and this disengagement is so that you are able to shift gears. Okay, so that you are able to shift gears from number 1 to number 2. So usually we engage the gear number 1. Then when it has revved up and it has used up the gear number 1 and you need to increase the speed, now you press your clutch in. When you press your clutch in, you separate the engine from the transmission. Then you engage gear number 2. Then you release the clutch, and now it binds now the engine to the transmission, and now you can continue with your movement. So basically it separates the engine from the transmission. And how does it happen? Now let us look at these parts first of all. You can see there is this flywheel here. Okay, there are these knobs here, this toothed wheel. This one attaches to the power that is coming from the engine, and then there is this inside bit here that attaches to the lever, or attaches to the shaft that goes into the gear section. Okay, so you can see this one is wider, and you can see the inside one is narrow. Then here, inside here, you have the discs, 1 2 3 4 5 6 clutch discs, and you can see now the wheels or the transmission will attach to this inner portion, and the engine will attach to this outer portion. So you can see there is this they are moving independent of each other. Okay, you can see I can move this inside, while this one for the outside remains stationary. Okay, so let us remove this. When we remove this carefully, you can see, oh, what is inside here. Okay, we have a clutch disc. Remove that one, and we have, actually this is the friction plate, this is the clutch disc, sorry, and now this is the plate. Remove this carefully, and now this is the plate. Okay, you can see these plates are in good condition, okay, but it has ridges on the inside. Now when you press the clutch inside, when the clutch is engaged, what happens is very simple. You separate these inside clutch plates from the disc plates so that you have space between each of these. You have space between this and this one on the inside. So you have a space, you have a space, you have a space. That is when the clutch now is pressed inside. Okay, so that you have spaces between the friction, the disc contains the friction material that connects to the outside and the one that has the grooves on the inside. So that when this one is put in this position and you have pressed your clutch inside and you have these spaces, it becomes very easy for the inside part to rotate independent of the outside part. When you release the clutch, you have these two firmly pressed together using these springs. Using these springs here. Okay? And then you have this plate on top. So usually there are screws that go inside here, and you screw very tightly so that the spring ensures that these two materials, these two plates, are in constant mesh. When you press the clutch inside, you separate them against the pressure of these springs. So that's why you feel there is always that springy sensation when you are placing in the clutch. But this is a manual clutch. The cable comes from, the handlebars all the way to this clutch manually. But I understand there are also hydraulic ones. But now, when you press the clutch inside, you separate these plates. So it becomes very easy for, the transmission to rotate freely of the engine. And then when you release it, by the power of these springs, they attach these two tightly together so they're able to move as a unit. So that's basically how the clutch works. So whatever happens for this clutch to wear out, for you to have that, what I've just described, that loss of power, is that what wears out is this friction material. When it wears out, they start slipping against one another even when it is engaged. So you don't have, transmission of power from the engine to the transmitter. There is that constant mesh is lost. So you have that slippage. That's what we call it the clutch slipping. So when they slip against one another, they accelerate the wear. You can see this one still has the grooves, but they're not as deep as these new ones. You can see there's still some grooves, but they're not as deep. And what also happens because of the constant slippage, there is usually burning of these plates. But these ones are still in pristine condition, but they usually burn out to have that, they usually take on a brown color. So we'll remove these friction discs, the 6 of them. We try to measure using a caliper to determine whether the total thickness is the same thickness that we have with the new ones. Okay, so I haven't done it before, so I'll just try to do it on camera just to try and see whether the total thickness that we are going to get is equivalent to you know, the thickness that you are going to get with these brand new ones. Now, this is a wet clutch. This is a wet clutch. This clutch is usually submerged in the same engine oil, so it's called a wet clutch. So you will find that, like in this case, after you know, draining the oil was very dark, obviously because of this material. It was very dark because of the wearing of this material, but also at the same time, there was also another issue in that we could actually see clutch debris in the oil strainer. There was just a lot of clutch debris. So it was just telling me automatically that the clutch had worn out. So we have this thickness of the, how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, and we have this thickness of 6. So let me get a caliper. We just do the measurement. So this caliper of mine, we set it to 0. Okay, it is in millimeters. So we start off with these ones that are, you know, the ones that are worn, you know, from the ones that are replaced. This is 19.0 millimeter. When I press it further, it's giving me 18.3 millimeter. Okay, so 18.3 for the ones that I did get them out. And let us see with these new ones, that was 18.3. Let us see with these new ones what measurement we are going to get. I am getting 18.2, really. Let us repeat. So I am going to measure across so that it does not enter into any of the grooves. Okay, you can see there it is now across. This is 17.8 millimeter. Okay, then we take this and we're also going to measure across 18.1 versus that was 18.1 for the new ones versus 17.9. So a very small difference, but very significant when it comes to running of the bike. So I did replace this clutch. The whole assembly costs about 6,000 shillings. That is about, you know, 6,000 shillings, you know, just buying this part alone. And then, you know, there was the labor part, and then we had to replace the transmission, you know, the engine oil, and, you know, it was you know, more costly than it would have been should I have used the right materials and avoided this catastrophe that happened. But, you know, even after it had broken, I still did 2 days, you know, just riding slowly and going to work and coming back home, and it still served me well anyway. But I keep saying this was my first bike. This is the bike that I learned, you know, riding with. So I know I did a few mistakes, you know, learning, you know, and you know, constantly running the bike on gear 1 and the low gears, you know, and you know, it was a learning process with it. So it took the brunt. I was actually ready for this clutch failing, you know, but now that I have a new one, I know it's going to run me for another couple of years, because by the time I was replacing this clutch, the bike had done about 4 years of service. So cheers, please subscribe to the channel so that you are able to be the first to get to know when I post new and informative videos like this. Cheers.